I think for most actors, there isn't always one big moment, no sudden explosion, no single film that turns the tide overnight. Sometimes the rise is much slower, much more methodical, less about instant stardom and more about quiet evolution. That's the kind of career I think Kriti Sanon has built, not a sprint but a climb. And somewhere along the way, without noise or without drama, she became one of the most watchable and reliable actors in the industry. She didn't announce herself with a bang, she didn't enter with a signature performance that made everyone stop and pay attention. She started simple, soft spoken in a film that wasn't even about her, but she made you look anyway. And then, film by film, she sharpened her choices, grew into her own confidence, and expanded her range. Today, she's not just a star, she's a national award winner, a producer, and an entrepreneur, and someone clearly playing the long game. The kind of actor who makes you realize, oh, she's here to stay, and for the long run. I think it's safe to say that Kriti's debut in Hero Panti wasn't groundbreaking. It was what you'd expect from a star launch vehicle, focused more on showcasing her co-star Tiger Shroff's acting skills than telling a memorable story. And yet, Kriti stood out. She had screen presence, that hard to define thing that makes you want to keep watching even when the film isn't giving her much to do. There was something unforced about her performance, even in that loud, over stylized setup. She didn't try too hard, she just seemed comfortable on screen. But Hero Panti didn't catapult her to the top. No next big thing headlines, no overnight hype, which in hindsight may have been a good thing, because it gave her space to figure out what kind of actor she wanted to be, and more importantly, how to get there without rushing. What came next was perhaps the in between phase, the figuring it out phase. Kriti did a mix of commercial films, Dilwale, Rafta, Luka Chupi, films that gave her visibility but not necessarily substance. She was good in them, competent, charming, effortlessly likable, but you couldn't always tell where she was headed. She didn't seem lost, just stuck in scripts that didn't challenge her. But every now and then something would flicker, a line delivery here, a quiet moment there. You could sense the gears turning, that there was more going on underneath the surface than the roles allowed her to show. It all came together very beautifully in Bareli Ki Barfi. Bareli wasn't a massive blockbuster, but it was a small gem, a sweet small town rom-com with emotional layers hiding beneath the quirky setup. And in it, Kriti was a revelation. She played Bitty with a kind of lived-in authenticity that you don't see a lot in commercial Hindi cinema nowadays. Restless, bold, funny, and fearlessly independent, but never in a way that felt performative. Kriti didn't overplay the feisty small town girl trope. She just existed as Bitty with all her contradictions and charm. This was perhaps the first time critics really started taking her seriously. Audiences already liked her, but now there was a new word that was getting attached to her name: actor. She was more than just a heroine, she had chops. From Breli Ki Barfi onwards, Kriti's filmography started showing patterns. She was no longer just signing what came her way, she was curating. She started leaning into stories with texture, small towns, strong female leads, roles with agency. Mimi, Panipat, even Luka Chupi. Love them or hate them, each of these roles centered her in ways that made it clear she was ready to carry films. Mimi was the big one. When Mimi dropped in 2021, everything changed. This was her first true solo vehicle, a role with emotional weight, narrative complexity, and no safety net. A surrogacy drama with moments of levity, pain, joy, and heartbreak, and Kriti had to carry all of it. And she did. She gained weight for the role, but more importantly, she shed every leftover layer of the model turned heroine image. She disappeared completely into that character. There's a scene in Mimi post delivery sitting alone, tired, confused, angry, where she doesn't say much but her face tells you everything. That kind of internal performance isn't easy, but Kriti made it look all so effortless. She won the national award for it, and this time no one rolled their eyes or called it a fluke. She had earned it this time. Post Mimi, something shifted, not just in how the audiences saw her, but in how she carried herself now. There was a visible ease in her interviews, more assertiveness in her choices. She started producing, launching her own banner, Blue Butterfly Films. She backed Do Patti, the Netflix thriller co-starring Kajol. She was no longer just acting in scripts, she was shaping them. And that's when you actually realize Kriti isn't here for a few good films. She's building something, a career that expands beyond performance, one that includes entrepreneurship, storytelling, and longevity. She also launched a skincare brand, positioning it smartly in a saturated market without leaning too hard on celebrity vanity. It wasn't loud, but it felt thought out, just like her career. I think post Mimi, Kriti could have easily logged into one kind of role, the emotional, grounded, female led space, but she didn't. She kept switching things up. In Bhediya, she went genre horror comedy, a space few females lead get to shine in. In Adipurush, she played Sita, a thankless, controversial film in many ways, but her performance was one of the few elements that didn't feel hollow. In Gunpat, she took on full-blown action. Not all of these films worked, but she kept trying new things. And I feel there's courage in that, not playing safe after a big win, not repeating what already worked. Kriti seems okay with some misses as long as she's learning. And I think that's what's so underrated about her as an actor, her willingness to be uncomfortable. Kriti Sanon doesn't feel like a star who's been manufactured. She didn't have a famous last name, she didn't have the PR machinery that builds headlines for fun. She doesn't rely on relationship rumors, pep talks, or airport drama. She's not trying to be in your face all the time. And yet, she's consistently present. She's made it in a way that feels organic, almost earned. Her career arc isn't dramatic, but it's precise. She's gone from debutante to promising to dependable to a serious performer. And at each stage, she's grown into the role rather than forcing a leap. That kind of pacing, that awareness of timing is almost rare in today's time and age. I think it's safe to say that today Kriti Sanon is in a space where she's earned industry respect, audiences love, and media credibility all without burning out. She has range, she has hits, she has the kind of measured stardom that doesn't demand headlines but holds your attention anyway. She can do rom-com, she can do drama, she can do genre, she can dance, she can emote, she can fight, she can cry, she can do anything, and she doesn't make a big deal out of any of it. And now she's producing stories she believes in, building businesses, and still keeping her acting sharp. She's not chasing anyone else's path, she's carving her own. Some actors arrive in one loud moment, others build something solid over time. Kriti Sanon did the latter, and in doing that, she created a career that isn't defined by one film, but by how every film got better, how every year added more dimension, how she grew in front of us without needing to scream for attention. She's not the underdog anymore, she's not the surprise performer, she's the real deal now, and the best part about it is that she's only getting started.